Have you ever looked at a massive cargo ship sitting still in the middle of the ocean and wondered how something heavier than entire skyscrapers doesn't simply drift away with the waves and currents? Modern ships can weigh hundreds of thousands of tons, yet somehow a chunk of metal dropped into the sea is enough to keep them in place. It almost sounds impossible when you think about it, but anchors are far more clever than they look, and the science behind them goes back thousands of years. Today, we will uncover how giant ships stay put in rough seas with nothing but steel, chains, and physics, right here on History of Simple Things. Long before modern cargo ships crossed oceans, ancient sailors already understood the importance of anchoring. Early anchors were surprisingly simple. Some were just large stones tied to ropes, while others were wooden frames weighted down with rocks. Ancient civilizations like the Greeks, Romans, and Chinese gradually improved anchor designs by adding hooks or flukes that could grip the seafloor. Even thousands of years ago, sailors realized something important. An anchor doesn't work simply because it's heavy. It works because it grabs the ground beneath the water. That idea still powers modern anchors today. Most people imagine an anchor working like a giant paperweight sitting on the ocean floor. In reality, the weight of the anchor itself is only part of the story. What truly keeps a ship from drifting is the way the anchor digs into sand, mud, clay, or gravel at the bottom of the sea. Modern anchors are designed with curved arms called flukes that bury themselves into the seabed when the ship pulls against them. When a ship drops anchor, the crew doesn't just toss it overboard and hope for the best. First, the anchor sinks to the bottom under its own weight. Then the ship slowly moves backward while releasing a long length of heavy anchor chain. As tension builds, the anchor is dragged sideways rather than straight upward. This angle is important because it forces the flukes to dig deeper into the seabed instead of popping loose. The chain itself plays a surprisingly important role too. Ship anchor chains are incredibly heavy, and part of that chain rests along the ocean floor. This creates a low pulling angle that helps the anchor stay buried. If the chain pulled upward too sharply, the anchor could easily break free. Think of it like trying to pull a shovel out of dirt. Pull sideways and it stays buried. Pull straight up and it comes loose much faster. This combination of anchor shape, chain weight, and pulling angle creates enormous holding power. In fact, a properly set anchor can hold forces many times greater than its own weight. A giant cargo ship may use an anchor weighing more than 10 tons, but the actual holding force can resist storms, waves, and strong currents far beyond what simple weight alone could manage. Different ships also use different types of anchors depending on their needs. One of the most common modern designs is the stockless anchor, often seen on large commercial ships. It has rotating flukes that can pivot and dig efficiently into the seabed. Naval vessels and cargo ships favor this design because it stores neatly inside the ship's hull. Meanwhile, smaller boats often use anchors designed for specific underwater conditions. Some work better in rocky bottoms, while others are ideal for sand or mud. There's even an anchor called the grapnel anchor that resembles a giant hook and is useful in rough, rocky areas where normal anchors might slide. But anchoring a ship isn't as simple as dropping metal into the water and walking away. Sailors must carefully calculate something called scope, which refers to the ratio between the length of chain released and the depth of the water. A common rule is to let out at least 5 to 7 times the water depth in chain length. So if the water is 20 meters deep, the ship might release over 100 meters of chain. That extra length allows the chain to curve naturally along the seabed, maintaining the low pulling angle needed for maximum holding power. Too little chain, and the anchor could drag across the bottom instead of digging in. And yes, anchors sometimes fail. During severe storms, anchors can drag if the seabed is too soft or if the force on the ship becomes too great. Strong winds and waves can slowly pull the anchor free, especially if it wasn't properly set in the first place. That's why ships often use multiple anchors in dangerous weather or rely on powerful engines to assist with positioning. Modern technology has also changed anchoring in interesting ways. Many ships now use advanced navigation systems and GPS to monitor whether an anchor is dragging. Some vessels even use dynamic positioning systems, where computers automatically control propellers and thrusters to keep the ship in place without anchors at all. These systems are especially useful for offshore drilling ships and research vessels operating in extremely deep waters where traditional anchors would be impractical. Because here's another fascinating problem. The deeper the water, the harder anchoring becomes. So the next time you see a gigantic ship calmly resting offshore, remember that it isn't being held in place by brute force alone. Beneath the water, an anchor is digging deep into the seabed, while heavy chains carefully distribute the load, working together to stop an entire floating city from drifting away. And all of it depends on one surprisingly simple idea humanity discovered thousands of years ago. Sometimes the best way to stop something enormous is to hold on to the ground beneath it. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.